What's happening, guys? Welcome back to my channel. This is Cash Talks, the place where you guys get to become the best version of yourselves. So in this video, we're going to be going through the anxious avoidant attachment style. Now, I've made videos on the anxious type, I've made videos on the avoidant type, and I've made a summary video as well. Now, if you haven't seen those videos, you're not going to be able to understand this video. So I strongly suggest you go and watch those videos first before watching this video. I'm going to leave the links down in the description below so you can go check them out, because the anxious avoidant type is literally a combination of the anxious type and the avoidant type. So you really need to understand those before you can understand this one. So if you've been in an abusive relationship, or you are in an abusive relationship, or a dysfunctional relationship, or just a generally unhappy relationship, there is a chance that you could be this type, or maybe even your partner or ex-partner is this type. Now, this type actually makes up a really small percentage of the population. These people are generally associated with other types of emotional behaviors, things like depression maybe, or maybe substance abuse or stuff like that, or other really traumatic things going on in their life. I'm not saying that if you are experiencing depression, for example, you are this type. I'm just saying that this type generally has other emotional things going on in their life, and it's just something to be aware of. Now, if you're not this type and you don't know anyone who is this type, I still strongly urge you to watch this video, because there may be a time in your life you will come across this type, and you'll see why in this video it's so important that you maybe let this person heal and don't necessarily enter into a relationship at that time until they become the secure type. So it's still so important that you actually know this person inside out. So definitely stay tuned for this video. Now, the way I'll describe this person in a nutshell is by literally saying they are the hot and cold type. That's literally how I would say it. They're a hot type and a cold type, meaning they are sometimes anxious and they are sometimes avoidant in a relationship. So we'll get onto that later into this video, but that's how I would describe them. Another way I'll describe them is by literally saying, I worry about being hurt. That's their phrase. They crave intimacy. They really want to be in a relationship, but they struggle trusting. And the reason is because they have a negative view of themselves and a negative view of others, which is literally why they stay in abusive relationships, because, you know, they're thinking in their head subconsciously, they're thinking, well, this person's not great, but I mean, I'm not great either, so I'll stay in this relationship because I crave the intimacy and I like being in a relationship. That's literally the mindset of the anxious avoidant type. These people, they don't have a lot of confidence, unfortunately. They have very low self-esteem and they don't have confidence in themselves, yeah, but they also don't have confidence in others, which is where this whole trust issue comes in. So yeah, ultimately, in a nutshell, they fear being vulnerable but crave intimacy. That's basically it. Now, okay, let's get straight to it. In a relationship, what are they like? Because that's what we want to know. What are they like in a relationship? So in a relationship, these people struggle sharing their emotions. They struggle communicating. And the reason being is because they want to share their emotions, but the anxious side of them or the avoidant side of them comes in, meaning either they don't want to share their emotions because they fear being abandoned for sharing their emotions. That's the anxious side. Or they don't want to share their emotions because they just don't want to seem weak. They see emotions as weak and they want to protect themselves and not seem vulnerable. And that's the avoidant side. But the point being, they will not share their emotions as much. And typical phrases might be like, you know, I'm not someone who easily shares their emotions. I struggle sharing my emotions, like stuff like that, you know? So a typical example might be like, they'll be suspicious, right? Because they'll be insecure, they'll be suspicious about their partner maybe doing something. Now, they won't confront their partner. They won't tell their partner like, hey, I'm seeing this thing, I'm not sure about it, like what's going on, etc. They'll instead hold it in. They'll hold it in because they either, you know, they don't want to lose you because they fear that abandonment. That's the anxious side. Or they just don't want to share their emotions because they may come across as vulnerable or maybe needy in the process of sharing this particular issue with you. So they'll hold it in and let it boil down. And what will happen is it will come out in a really bad way later on, whether it's through an argument, whether it's through pulling away, whether it's through just becoming more clingy, or whether it's even just through just infidelity. That's something that we really need to be aware about. I actually read an account of someone who is the anxious attachment style. And now this person literally described what it's like being in a relationship as the anxious attachment style. And it's so funny because the story that they laid out relates to so many relationships in today's age. So they basically described it as they enter into the relationship and things are great. Now everything's giddy, everything's fun, everything's happy-go-lucky, you know, it's that honeymoon phase. And what's happening in that moment for the anxious attachment style is their anxious side is coming out. They are seeing this partner and putting them on a pedestal because they crave the intimacy. They want to be in the relationship. So what they're doing in that moment is ignoring all the red flags, ignoring all the bad things about them, ignoring anything that they don't like about this person, just because they like the feeling of being in a relationship. The anxious side loves it. Now, few months come along. Now they're a bit more comfortable. Now things are going more towards a serious relationship. the partner is now showing more love, more affection, more care. And as a result, the anxious type switches to the avoidant type and kind of feels more suffocated now. Now they're worried about being dependent. Now they start seeing all the negative things. Now they start spotting the red flags. Now they start seeing all the things that they don't like about this person. And some stuff they'll even make up. Why? Because they're trying to protect themselves now. Now they're scared of getting too close. Now they're scared of trusting. So they're trying to hide away. And that's literally how it works for this type of person. They'll switch in between anxious and avoidant depending on how their partner's being. If their partner's being a bit kind of dismissive, a bit avoidant, or a bit just, a bit away, they'll start to become more anxious. If their partner's being more clingy, more affectionate, more caring, they'll start to be more avoidant. And they're just constantly going in and out of this cycle because they haven't healed. And that's one thing that this person made very, very clear in their account, that they did this with multiple relationships because they never took time out to heal. They never took time out to understand their attachment style. They never took time out to be more aware of what's going on and where this is all coming from. So they just kept doing it. And all these relationships, they were hurting other people and hurting themselves. So it's really, really good you guys are watching this video because there's a chance you could be this type. And the truth is, everyone is a little bit of each type. We have dominant types, but we still have a percentage of each one. So you could be like 80, 10, 10, 10. So that didn't even add up. So you could be like 70, 10, 10, 10. 70% anxious, 10% secure, 10% avoidant, and 10% anxious avoidant. That's kind of how it works. So until you choose to heal, you're never really gonna stop this kind of behavior. So I'm going to be making a video on that, obviously, so definitely subscribe because when I make that video, you're going to want to watch it. Okay, so obviously on this channel, we think deep, we fly high. So we need to understand where this is all coming from. Ultimately, it's all coming from the fact that they just want the intimacy and they struggle trusting. So they want to be in a relationship, but they also want to protect themselves. And that's where all of this kind of comes from, this constant up and down of anxious, avoidant, because they want to be with you, but it's the emotions, like they want to protect their emotions. And it's this constant cycle. Now, I'm not going to kind of dive deep too much into this, and this is why you should watch the other videos, because what you can do is understand that in a nutshell, the anxious type, they fear abandonment. The avoidant type wants to protect themselves. So combine the two. That's literally what's going on underneath the surface. They are fearing the abandonment of this person that they're with, but at the same time, they, want to protect themselves and don't want to be vulnerable and don't want to be too dependent. One way of kind of summarizing the relationship is a roller coaster. They're just a roller coaster. You know that song by Justin Bieber, Roller Coaster? Yeah, basically that is the anxious avoidant type. Or I don't know, I used to listen to Conor Maynard. He has a song called Merry Go Round. And he's just like, you're playing around with me. And yeah, that basically the anxious avoidant type. It's this constant, do you love me? Do you not? Like, that's the question. That's what happens for partners who are with the anxious avoidant type. Okay, so what is their income like and what is their satisfaction in life like? So unfortunately, for the anxious avoidant type, their income is very, very low. Why? Because they're so inconsistent. So if they're being clingy, they're completely consumed by the relationship and can't actually go out and, earn loads of money. And equally, when they're avoidant, yeah, fine, they can earn loads of money, but it's inconsistent. So ultimately, overall, their income isn't as high as it could be. Satisfaction-wise, yeah, it's not great. It's very, very low. They struggle with finding fulfillment, finding happiness in their relationships because they haven't healed. They struggle trusting. They have low self-esteem. They get into relationships which aren't good for them because they haven't understood where all of this is coming from. Now, jealousy, what are they like when they're jealous? I would say that when they're jealous, it would depend on their type. It would literally depend, are they being in an anxious state or are they being in an avoidant state? If they're being in an anxious state, there'll be that type of jealousy. If they're being in an avoidant state, there'll be that type of jealousy. And, you can go watch the other videos to find out. Breakup. What are they like during a breakup? This is a big, big one. In a breakup, they close down. They close down hard, especially if they feel injustice during the breakup. So if they feel that person has wronged them, they'll close down hard. Avoidant type comes out big time. The difference though between the avoidant type and the anxious avoidant type during a breakup, the avoidant type, they won't process their emotions for like the next 2-3 months. Then it'll hit them. The anxious avoidant type, it'll probably be about a month and a half. They'll close down, think they're fine, think everything's fine, maybe feel a little bit of emotion, then it'll hit them. And that's when they really need to process it. See, the anxious type and the secure type, they actually process their breakups pretty well. They'll feel the emotion. They'll go through it. But once they've gone through it, that's it. It's over. Move on. They'll be healed and they'll get on with their life. Well, the anxious type will only be healed once they become a secure type. But the point is that they'll be over it. The anxious avoidant type, they'll kind of suppress and the avoidant type as well will suppress until they finally go through it. And it's likely that during a breakup, the anxious avoidant type will rebound. They will rebound hard, and they're actually the most likely to rebound and have multiple partners because they're trying to fill that void. They're trying to satisfy this intimacy despite not wanting to trust people. So they'll rebound, and it's never ever successful. Like, it's rarely successful. The reason is because they're jumping into something without even knowing what they want, without even they're just doing it for the sake of filling something. They're not doing it because they genuinely want to serve that person and want to be with this person as a partner. And so this is why I say it's really important knowing this stuff, because you may be entering into a relationship and that person could just be on a rebound because they're an anxious avoidant type. So you really need to be careful about who you're entering into a relationship with and what type they are, as well as what type you are. Sometimes during a breakup, they'll actually go back to unhealthy habits. Maybe they used to drink a lot. They'll go through, drinking phases. Maybe they used to binge TV, binge eat, all of that. They'll go back to that. So they'll only do this if they're unaware of obviously how to process a breakup, and if they haven't, emotionally developed and all of that stuff. So I'm not saying that every single person who is this type will go through this. I'm just saying this is likely what will happen if they haven't healed or haven't processed their breakup properly. Obviously, I'm going to make a video on actually how to, at some point in the future, I'll make a video on how to actually process a breakup for each type. So how an anxious type can process a breakup, how an anxious avoidant, how an avoidant type can process a breakup. But one thing I'd say is, for the anxious avoidant, please stick with your close friends. And if you haven't got any close friends, make closer friends. So the friends that you currently have, build on that, because right now you're going to be craving intimacy like crazy. And the problem is you don't trust people. So you can't just jump into the next person and be like, okay, let's get deep ASAP. It's not going to work. So it's better that you go to your friends and seek that intimacy that you so deeply crave. And then naturally you'll be able to trust them a lot more because they are your friends. So you'll be able to feel whatever it is that you're missing. And that will help you kind of process the breakup a lot better. Okay, so where did all this come from? That's the big question. Where did it come from? Why are we like this? So the thing about this type is it's not very often that someone's actually kind of got this type from childhood. It's quite often that they've got this type because they were another type before, went through some sort of trauma. So maybe they were in a relationship and then became this type. So maybe someone was anxious before, went into a relationship, got cheated on, and then became avoidant as well, because now they're suddenly trying to protect their emotions. So now they're anxious and they're avoidant. Do you know what I mean? So my point is that it's not always childhood. It's sometimes trauma and stuff that have led to them being this way. As for childhood, what could have happened is, like in the other videos I've mentioned, inconsistent parenting, carers just being kind of there when they need them, but then also not there sometimes. And that would naturally, for a baby, create a lot of inconsistency. They're like, what do I do? I have these needs and I want them met, but they're not being met. Or they are being met sometimes, but they're not being met other times. And so what will happen is, this is where it determines whether they'll become an avoidant type or whether they'll become an anxious avoidant. See, the avoidant type will be like, okay, my needs aren't being met, I better satisfy them myself. So then that's where the avoidant type becomes really independent and struggles to actually have intimacy. The anxious avoidant will go, I can't deal with this myself. And that's where it ends. That's literally what happens. Their needs aren't being met. They can't handle it themselves. They become anxious and avoidant. That's basically how they end up being that type in the future. Another thing what leads to this type is a lot of abuse from a young age, a lot of trauma from a young age. That could have also led to this type as well. Now, in conclusion of this all, I want to say this. Being a certain type, there is nothing wrong with that. What's wrong is choosing not to work on it and heal it, because naturally you're just going to be hurting yourself and others. So it's important to recognize that, okay, I'm this type. Great. What can I do to work on this? That's the question. When I figured this out, when I started studying this, it was a big eye opener. And that's the whole process of personal development. You're going to find out stuff about yourself that you really don't want to listen to and you really don't want to admit. But in admitting it, you can become more self-aware and start to actually heal from it. And when you can heal from it, only then can you start finding happiness, fulfillment, success in your relationships and other areas of your life. So I just want to leave you on that note. Now, the next video is the one that we've all been waiting for, which is the secure type. So please subscribe right now, because that video is going to be so powerful in understanding what the secure type is like and how we can become that type. So hit the like button if you really found this video helpful. Obviously, follow me on Instagram, and I think that's it. Catch you guys later. Cash Talks is out.